How people faked miracles in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages, a period often characterized by profound religious devotion, unwavering faith, and a world steeped in the miraculous. For many, miracles were not merely abstract concepts but tangible interventions of the divine into the everyday fabric of life. They offered hope, explained the inexplicable, and provided comfort in a harsh, uncertain world. Yet, beneath this veneer of spiritual authenticity, there was a thriving, often audacious industry of deception. Today, we peel back the layers of piety to explore a fascinating, if somewhat cynical, aspect of medieval life: how people faked miracles. To understand this phenomenon, we must first grasp the colossal significance of miracles in the medieval mind. Miracles were the ultimate validation. A saint's shrine that produced a steady stream of miraculous cures would draw pilgrims from across continents, each carrying their hopes, their ailments, and, crucially, their offerings. A church possessing a genuine relic, authenticated by a divine sign, could ascend from obscurity to become a powerful pilgrimage site, a veritable spiritual enterprise. The stakes, therefore, were incredibly high, transcending mere spiritual prestige to encompass vast economic and political power. In an age where divine favor was seen as the ultimate currency, the temptation to manufacture it, to create the illusion of the miraculous, became irresistible for many. Consider, for a moment, the sheer financial incentive. Imagine a struggling monastery, its coffers empty, its fields barren. Suddenly, a vision, a dream, a discovery reveals the long-lost bone of a local saint within its grounds. If this relic begins to manifest miraculous powers, the lame walking, the blind seeing, the sick recovering, the monastery's fortunes are transformed overnight. Pilgrims flock, donations pour in, and the once destitute establishment becomes a beacon of spiritual power and, inevitably, material wealth. It's akin to a modern-day struggling business suddenly finding a hidden treasure or an exclusive, highly sought-after patent. The transformation could be dramatic, immediate, and utterly life-changing for the institution and its custodians. Now, how did they pull it off? The methods were often surprisingly simple, relying on a combination of human gullibility, the power of suggestion, ingenious mechanical devices, and sometimes a theatrical flair worthy of any modern stage production. Let us begin with the cornerstone of medieval spiritual commerce: relics. Relics were pieces of the bodies of saints, bones, hair, teeth, or objects associated with them, like fragments of clothing or tools. The veneration of relics was immense, believed to confer blessings, protection, and miraculous healing. The demand, naturally, far outstripped the supply of genuine articles. This scarcity created a vibrant, often illicit, market. Forgers would manufacture relics out of common animal bones, wood, or cloth, then authenticate them through fabricated stories or staged events. One common trick involved the sweat or blood of a saint. A porous material, like a piece of cloth, might be soaked in a reddish dye or animal blood, then presented as the miraculous effusion of a saint's body. Or a bone might be treated with a substance that gave it an aged, sacred appearance. Imagine the careful crafting of a finger bone of Saint Cuthbert from a deer's toe, lovingly enshrined and then proclaimed to have brought sight to a blind peasant. The belief, fueled by desperation and community expectation, often filled in any logical gaps. Some relics were simply misidentified. A peasant might stumble upon an old bone in a field, genuinely believe it to be a saint's, and the legend would grow from there, sometimes without any malicious intent. But for many, the intent was explicitly commercial. The church itself, recognizing the proliferation of fake relics, eventually introduced more stringent examination processes. But this was often too little, too late, and difficult to enforce across vast geographical distances. Moving beyond static objects, consider healing miracles. These were perhaps the most impactful and widely broadcast signs of divine favor. How does one convincingly fake a blind person regaining sight or a crippled person walking? One common method was the prearranged cure. An individual, perhaps hired or coerced, would feign a disability, blindness, lameness, muteness. They would then be brought to a shrine, often amidst a crowd of eager onlookers. After prayers, incantations, and perhaps a dramatic touch of the relic, the individual would suddenly recover. The blind person would gasp and point to the light. The lame person would rise and take hesitant steps. The mute would utter a few halting words. This was medieval performance art at its finest, a carefully choreographed spectacle designed to inspire awe and open purses. It's the ancient equivalent of a reality TV show, where the drama is heightened for maximum impact, and the contestants are in on the act. Sometimes the cure wasn't entirely fraudulent. The immense power of belief, what we today call the placebo effect, played a significant role. A genuinely ill person, convinced that a saint's intercession would heal them, might experience a psychological uplift that alleviated their symptoms, or even genuinely recover from a self-limiting illness that would have resolved anyway. When this happened, it was immediately attributed to the saint, reinforcing the belief in the shrine's efficacy. The line between genuine psychological relief and outright fraud could be incredibly blurred. Another trick involved temporary ailments. Certain herbs or substances could induce temporary paralysis or blindness, which would then naturally subside, appearing to be a miraculous cure. Or, an individual suffering from a psychosomatic illness might be cured when their emotional distress was relieved by the fervent prayers and atmosphere of hope at a shrine. Beyond personal healing, there were miracles involving statues and images. Tales abound of weeping statues, bleeding crucifixes, or icons whose eyes seemed to move. These effects were achieved through surprisingly simple mechanics. For weeping statues, hidden reservoirs of water or oil, perhaps mixed with a red dye to simulate blood, could be slowly released through tiny, almost imperceptible holes. The tears would trickle down the statue's face, creating a powerful visual impact. Moving eyes could be achieved by subtle hinges or levers operated from behind the altar or through hidden passages. Imagine a priest, positioned behind a statue, subtly manipulating a string to make the statue's eyes appear to gaze upon the devoted. The dim lighting of medieval churches and the profound belief of the congregants made such deceptions remarkably effective. It's the equivalent of a modern stage magician's illusion, designed to astound and mystify, but with the added weight of spiritual significance. Then there were the miracles involving the sacred host or the blood of Christ. Reports of the host bleeding, transforming into flesh, or emitting light were powerful affirmations of transubstantiation. While some of these might have been genuine phenomena, e.g. certain molds or fungi can produce red pigments mimicking blood, others were undoubtedly fabricated. A priest might prick a host with a needle and introduce a drop of animal blood, or use a dye. The veneration surrounding the Eucharist meant that such occurrences, even if suspect, were often embraced with fervent belief, as they served to reinforce central tenets of faith. Even more dramatic were miracles of light and fire. Medieval texts describe lamps that would burn endlessly without oil, or fires that would spontaneously ignite. While some of this might have been exaggerated observation, or even natural phenomena misattributed, sophisticated chemical knowledge, however rudimentary by modern standards, could facilitate such deceptions. For instance, substances like phosphorus, which ignites upon exposure to air, could be used to create the illusion of spontaneous combustion. Hidden wicks, slow-burning concoctions, or even strategically placed mirrors could create the appearance of inexplicable light. These were the special effects of the Middle Ages, designed to evoke wonder and reverence. Theatricality also extended to exorcisms. While some individuals genuinely suffered from mental illnesses or neurological conditions that medieval society attributed to demonic possession, others were clearly part of a calculated act. Individuals might feign contortions, speak in strange voices, or claim to reveal hidden secrets, all under the guise of being possessed. The exorcist would then engage in a dramatic confrontation, culminating in the demon being cast out, often with a final, dramatic shriek. This public spectacle not only reinforced the power of the church but also served as a warning against sin and temptation. It was a powerful tool for social control, designed to reinforce orthodoxy and demonstrate the Church's authority over supernatural forces. It's important to note that the Church itself was not a monolithic entity that simply condoned all such activities. While local clergy might be complicit or genuinely deceived, the higher echelons of the Church gradually developed mechanisms to investigate claims of miracles and authenticity of relics. The process of canonization, for instance, became increasingly rigorous, demanding multiple attested miracles before an individual could be declared a saint. Councils and papal decrees periodically condemned the trade in fake relics and urged vigilance. However, the sheer scale of the practice, the difficulty of communication and enforcement, and the decentralized nature of power meant that fraud remained rampant. To crack down too hard on all alleged miracles might also be seen as undermining faith itself, a dangerous tightrope walk for the ecclesiastical authorities. The consequences for those caught faking miracles varied widely. At best, it could lead to public humiliation and the loss of reputation for a particular shrine or individual. At worst, it could result in severe punishment, including excommunication, imprisonment, or even execution, especially if the fraud was deemed blasphemous or treasonous. The Church was keen to distinguish between what it considered genuine divine intervention and what it saw as cynical manipulation for profit or power. So, why were people so susceptible to these deceptions? It wasn't merely ignorance. Imagine a world without scientific understanding of disease, without modern medicine, without rational explanations for natural phenomena. In such a world, miracles offered hope, explanation, and a connection to the divine. Faith was not just a personal belief but a communal, lived experience, deeply intertwined with every aspect of life. Desperate people, afflicted by illness or poverty, would clutch at any straw of hope. The powerful collective belief of a crowd could be an overwhelming force, making it difficult for an individual to question what was presented before their eyes, even if their own rational mind raised doubts. It was a society where wonders were expected, where the boundary between the natural and supernatural was permeable, and where the human desire for meaning and salvation was paramount. The medieval era, for all its profound faith, thus offers us a fascinating glimpse into the human propensity for both belief and deception. The stories of faked miracles are not just tales of cynical manipulation but also reflections of the era's anxieties, aspirations, and the powerful, sometimes overwhelming, human need for something to believe in. They remind us that even in the most devout periods, human nature, with its complex mix of faith, greed, ingenuity, and desperation, remained remarkably consistent. I hope this journey into the fascinating and often surprising world of medieval miracle faking has given you a deeper appreciation for the complexities of history. If you've enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more historical insights, and let us know in the comments below what other topics from history you'd love us to delve into next.